So, back with another video, and now I had one earlier this morning or last night, depending on where you are, that came out talking about the crossplay that NHL 23 was introducing. Well, now I'm going to talk about the gameplay, the gameplay trailer that came out.
Last Chance Puck Movement is a new series of desperation gameplay animations that add an extra layer of authenticity and excitement to the game. Now, if you receive any level of contact, from light bumps to heavy shoves, you'll still be able to react. Previously, when this happened, there was a loss of offensive player control to reward defense. We wanted to fix that to keep the flow of the game moving and create more dynamic and unique plays. We've added two new strategies to NHL 23, the 1-3-1 power play, and on the penalty kill, we've added the 1-1-2. We've also added the ability to rearrange the player positions before and after the face-off. We also added a new feature this year called Assisted Strategies. These will pop up in-game and give you a better chance to either get back into or finish the game. The two new X Factors are Trevor Zegras' Skilled Up and Sarah Nurse's Relentless. AI goalies will now have access to more tools than ever, with over 300 new save animations that were previously only available to human goalies. And in an update to AI skaters, they'll now gesture to indicate when a player is open, but also lift their stick to show when they're taking a line change. We reworked Pass Assist. And to balance that, we're improving the ability to intercept or disrupt those passes if you're well positioned. We've also heard your feedback around poke checks. In addition, we increased puck carrier speed and ensure that the fastest skaters in the league act like it. Thank you for tuning in.
Now, first thing they started with was Last Chance Puck Movement. And so they talked about how they're putting in Last Chance Puck Movement, and it's going to kind of be a thing where you double tap X or A to move or pass the puck, and they're enhancing defense to kind of compensate for that, to make it feel like you'll be able to stop these, and if you put them in a bad position, they won't be able to do something weird. And they ultimately are pulling a lot of those, I guess, from a large group of animations, those Last Chance Puck Movement things. That's great. I'm glad to have that, because they're changing it from last year where you get bumped and all of a sudden I'd be going to get bumped and I'm going to take a shot at the same time, and I hit the button, I get bumped, all of a sudden I stop the shot, and it's like, oh, I completely forgot what I was doing from the play. My player will. And I'm like, bro, you got like tapped, shoot the puck. And I think that'll do some good, because if they reworked like how you get bumped and blah blah blah, and just kind of how you do it, how you do everything on the ice, that'd be great. But it's also a thing of, you got to balance this right. You can't make this too easy, or else everyone's going to do it. Everyone's going to do it. But you also can't make it super hard, because then it's going to be like nobody's going to be able to do it, and it's kind of going to screw everybody. And then they come out with a new strategy thing. They added the 1-3-1, which I love the 1-3-1. It's something that you kind of see the Rangers run with. Fox will be up top. You'll have usually whoever's in the other defenseman's slot on the right side, I want to say. And they'll jump between what seems like 2 point, 2 middle, 1 low. And then you usually see Kreider at the net, Mika on the left side, and somebody in the middle. It's been weird. There will be certain guys there, depending on the time of the year. And you just see the Rangers would crush people, because you'd see the puck go from Fox to whoever's on the right side, to Fox, to Mika, to whoever's on the right side, back and forth and back and forth. Even to whoever's that free skater around the middle, it'd go back and forth, or he'd come up sometimes. And then it would be, you'd find your open guy, and you kill him with that shot. Mika would hit him from around the OV spot. And it's like, why? I was always wondering, like, why can't we do that in NHL? Because I'd love to run it. And not only that, you could run it with a team who runs it all the time, like the Rangers. And then they released the 1-1-2, or they're putting in the 1-1-2 for defense. Or I guess cone +1, where you set up and penalty kill, 4-on-5 penalty kill with one up high and then a cone in front of the net. That's great. And it's a good counter. I don't know if I'm gonna run it very much, but it is what it is. And they also introduced, you can change around the lines during or before the before and after the face-off, I guess, or something like that. But I know you can do it before the face-off. That's great, because if I got a power play line coming in on one side and it's like, well, and I'm set up on the wrong side. Let's say I have somebody on left defense who I'd rather have at right defense because I'm going to chip it back to them and I'm going to have them take a monster clapper. You can do that now on the face-off right before the power play. You can move your defenseman who's got thunderclap over so he can take a monster jab at it. Or let's say you've got a right-hand guy on one side and a left-hand guy on the other, and then you want to swap them because you want to drift one to the far post. You can do that. You can do it where you can swap them. Or let's say you've got a different hand. Let's say you're on, again, the left side, and you've got a right-hand shooter. Now, I have a feeling I'm going to say this wrong. What is it? Right-hand shooter, left, or far post? No, it's left-hand shooter. Yes. It's too early for this. Let's say you have to swap the guy, or you have to swap your center and winger because you want the guy with the right hands on the stick to do a tip on far post. You can do that, and that's great. And then you also have new roles for, and I guess the CPU is going to do a lot, tripping over my words today, is going to play into this with, you have your distributor, finisher, and puck carrier. Now, they give an example of the Golden Knights with Eichel, Stefanso, and Pietrangelo. Now, that's good because then if you're playing away, or you're lock on a player or something, it also helps with, if CPU is going to work this like it should, then there won't be many problems. They'll set up right, and you'll have puck movement like it should be. And it'll flesh the game out more, and it'll be the thing of, now you can actually do the things you want to do on a power play. And not only that, they bring up these kind of quick, on-the-fly line changes brought up by your coach. Coaching adjustments is what they're calling it, where, let's say, it'll bring up a certain thing like, I'm going to make an example. I don't know if this is a perfect example, but let's say someone's running a 1-3-1. What if you're not running a cone plus one, or a 1-1-2? The coach will probably say, "All right, do you want to run a 1-1-2?" And you can up on the D-pad to accept and down on the D-pad to decline. So it's one of those things of, it can give you the help if you need it, or if you want to do things in a better way, or in a different way, you can do it than what you're doing. Well, let's say you have your own strategy in mind. You don't have to do it. You can just do your own strategy and kind of do things your way. And then they bring up X factors. Now, Zegras has skilled up, which it gives him a better opportunity at performing lacrosse goals and executing lacrosse passes and shots. That's great, but don't make it overpowered. I know they're going to make it overpowered at first. It always happens. I'm hoping they tone it down. I'm hoping it doesn't end up like Sharp Edges, where everybody runs it and I want to bash my head on my table for it. And I know I'm not the only one that had problems with Sharp Edges. My whole club hates it in a way too. Because there'd be times we'd run into teams who ran full-on Sharp Edges on their whole roster, and it's like, dude, why? Why? We're tired of it. But I think it's good to make a lacrosse goal a little bit easier, but I don't think you need to make it too much easier. And then you also have the other ability of, what is it? Now it's not showing. Okay, there it is. Relentless, which is the X Factor button for Sarah Nurse for making off-balance and desperate plays on the puck. It makes it easier to do, and it increases accuracy after contact. That's great. there was going to be an X Factor rolling out with this new desperation moves. Or desperation moves. Yeah, I get it. I get why they're doing it. That's great. That's good. It's good to do something like that, but let's hope it's not overpowered at launch. And, they bring up the whole we're tweaking X Factors, blah, blah, blah. They said they're making the ones that aren't used much better. They're making it so there's more incentive to use, I should say. That is paraphrasing. That is not exactly what they said, but that's kind of what it seems like. And I'll be the first one to tell you, you better get X Factors. You better change a couple X Factors. Because we've had the problem of sharp edges where everybody runs it. It was never fixed, and it was one of those things that it annoyed me to no end because anyone who had a short build that was a dangler, sniper, or playmaker usually ran sharp edges. There was some teams we ran into where it was full superstar X Factor edges, whole roster. I'm like, no, we don't want to do this. And how we played was we'd play usually playmaker, sniper, 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 dangler, sniper, or something like that. And I usually played my small EFD. It did not work. It was not fun when it was, oh, these guys all have sharp edges, so now we're going to have to deal with them like just playing a garbage game. No, I don't want to do that. That was part of the reason we had some bad days was just because we run into edges after edges after edges after edges, and it sucked. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a sharp or a small tweak to Beauty Backhand, just because I will say it is a pretty good X Factor. I mean, it's not overpowered, but it's not underpowered either. I don't see a lot of people use it. I think it's a little underrated at certain times because some people don't run it, and I'm like, dude, I would run this all day. I run it on an offensive build. I always run Beauty Backhand. I always do because it gives me a good backhand shot, and that's what I want is a good backhand shot. Because usually my build already has a good snapshot or something. All I need is a backhand shot, and I'm good. And there's not many abilities that really do need tweaks down. I mean, you could give a little tweak to what's the one? Oh, you could give a slight tweak to maybe not even back at you. No one even runs back at you. You could give a small tweak to make it snappy here and there, or one of the other things, but I would say Quick Pick deserves, and they did say they were going to make some that deserved or that people didn't really use a little upgrade. I think Quick Pick deserves a slight upgrade, because that didn't really do what I mean, there was times where it felt like it was working, but a lot of times it didn't. It was depressing. I mean, Heat Seeker, it was the same thing. It was hit or miss. Nobody really uses in reverse unless you really backskate, and I don't see really anybody run it from all the games we played. And that I'm not surprised by. I don't necessarily think it's a great ability. Same thing with Born Leader. Born Leader is just something no one's going to really use. No one's really going to use Born Leader. I think that one can be taken right out. That doesn't even seem like a co-op or an ability you're going to use when you play against other people. That seems more like a franchise kind of thing. I mean, people never ran Bounce Back. They didn't want to waste a spot on Bounce Back. Back at you is another one I didn't really see used unless you had a big guy that you could hit back with. That's another one I think could use a little bit of incentive to use. Shrug It Off, that's another one that I never really saw used. And I mean, a lot of the defensive abilities I didn't see used at times. Like, I never saw Ice Pack used. Or Bouncer. Or Crease Crasher wasn't really used. Because I didn't really run into a lot of guys that used it. I ran into a lot of smaller... Because we played club, and we would run into a lot of smaller builds up front on the center and winger position that would run a lot of... You'd see a lot of sharp edges, close quarters, make it snappy. You'd see the occasional one-timer from a winger or something You'd see the occasional all alone for breakaways. You'd see maybe sometimes seeker on a defenseman or magnetic on a guy who's doing some stuff around the net or sits around the net. You would see a lot of puck on a string. I think that's another one that you could see take a slight decrease in how good it is. And there was a bit of Schneip that was run a lot. I don't know if it's still run a lot like it was. And I mean, you never really did see clips either. That's another one. Shock and awe was one that sometimes was used. I mean, there's some abilities that are great and other abilities that's like no one ever uses them in competitive, and so I don't even use a lot of them in franchise. And then they talked about the AI. They did some new goalie animations. So it's going to be they're upping the amount of things an AI goalie can do. That's great. I'm glad. I'm glad that AI goalies can do some different things now because I don't have to see the same animation over and over and over and over again. That's great. I like that. They also talked about how they made it so AI players in the game will make gestures with their stick, like they'll point towards someone who's open, or make a gesture to show they're open, or they will lift their stick when they're coming off, because there would be times where a guy's coming off. I don't notice the direction they're going, where the bench is, or what they're really doing, and I send it to him, and it's like, oh, that guy's coming off. Because that was an occasional problem for me. And then there was also the thing of they are making it so they also point towards someone who's dangerous, like give a gesture towards someone who's dangerous. That's good, because sometimes I don't necessarily notice who's on the ice. I think that goes for everybody. Like, when you're dialed in, sometimes you don't notice. And then they had the community feedback. They updated Pass Assist, which, okay, I'm fine with that. They're making it so it's... Because there was a slight problem with sometimes there's a puck that my player should put their stick there for. And they just watch it go by and go through their legs. I'm like, really, dude? And then other times, even if I wasn't running quick pick, there'd be interceptions so that I'd be like, you can get that. With quick pick, there'd be times where I'm like, you should have better reach than anybody else, and you don't get that puck, but the other guy does. And other times, you'll see players go for the grab of a puck, and one will, one won't, and it's stupid. And they also updated interceptions of passes. That's good. That's something I think that needed to be done, because that was annoying me so bad. There would be problems with that all the time. And they also updated poke check, so if you're in a bad position, I think they slightly nerfed the whole thing, but so if you're in a bad position, you can't get it. Now, I think they should have aimed this more towards the bigger guys, because there would be a lot of times I'd run into bigger guys and it'd feel like they had a wingspan twice my size. Because I'd be going with the puck, no matter how I position myself, they get the puck, and I'm like, dude, you're like 6'7" and you're an enforcer. You shouldn't be able to steal the puck like that. And they would, and it was stupid. And I know that annoyed some other